Admit it. We've all been there. You're in a crowded cafe, trying to enjoy your morning, and there it is, the loud chewing. Or perhaps it's your coworker, constantly interrupting every meeting, convinced their point is the only one that matters. Maybe it's your cousin who, bless their heart, simply cannot stop talking about the latest conspiracy theory, no matter how many times you try to change the subject. Or, my personal favorite, that kid next door who seems to believe your front porch is his personal skateboard ramp, creating a symphony of thuds and scrapes that drills directly into your last nerve. And honestly, no matter how much we talk about being zen, practicing mindfulness, or cultivating emotional maturity, there are moments when we just break. We snap. We feel that familiar, hot boil of frustration rising within us, threatening to spill over. It's that primal urge to scream, to lash out, to just make it stop. But what if I told you that the person annoying you, the one pushing all your buttons, isn't just a randomly irritating individual? What if they are, in an unexpected way, actually teaching you something profoundly important about yourself? What if their seemingly infuriating habits are, in fact, shining a spotlight on an unexamined part of you? You see, this isn't just about managing external annoyances. It's about understanding an internal phenomenon. Consider this. Is it truly just about the loud chewing, or the endless interruptions, or the skateboard thuds? Or is there something deeper at play, something within you that these external triggers are activating? We often focus solely on the annoyance itself, pointing our finger outwards, assigning blame to the annoying person. But what if the key to your calmness, to your emotional freedom, lies not in changing them, but in understanding your own reaction? It's a radical thought, I know. It shifts the entire dynamic from, they are making me angry, to, why am I feeling angry in response to them? This isn't about excusing bad behavior in others, but about empowering yourself. It's about taking back control of your emotional landscape, regardless of what's happening around you. So stick with me, because what if Carl Jung, the brilliant Swiss psychiatrist, could explain your rage, offering a pathway not just to understand it, but to transform it? Because according to Jung, there's a powerful, often hidden, part of our psyche that plays a significant role in these very reactions. A part he called the shadow. The insight into understanding those triggers and transforming your reactions comes from the work of a brilliant mind, Carl Jung. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, a contemporary of Sigmund Freud, believed that every person has what he called a shadow. This isn't some mystical, dark entity that follows you around. Instead, think of it as a psychological mirror, reflecting every trait, every impulse, every desire we deny, reject, or suppress within ourselves. In simple terms, if your conscious personality is the carefully curated version of yourself you present at a job interview, articulate, composed, intelligent, then your shadow is the raw, untamed stuff you hide, not just from others, but often from yourself. It's those parts of you that you deem unacceptable, inconvenient, or even shameful. Maybe it's your laziness, your anger, your jealousy, your craving for attention, or even your raw ambition that you've been told isn't nice. Let me give you an analogy that might make this clearer. Imagine you're wearing a pristine, all-white outfit. You've just gotten it dry cleaned and you feel great. Then suddenly, someone bumps into you, sending a cascade of dark coffee right onto your chest. What's your immediate reaction? For many of us, it might be a sudden burst of anger, frustration, maybe even panic. You might lash out at the clumsy person, your mood completely ruined. Now, here's where Jung's idea steps in. The question isn't just, why were they so clumsy? The deeper, more illuminating question is, why did that spilled coffee make me lose it to that degree? It's just coffee, right? Perhaps it's not just the coffee. Maybe it taps into a deeper insecurity about control, a fear of imperfection, a feeling of being disrespected, or even an unacknowledged frustration from earlier in your day or week. That heightened, almost irrational reaction, that explosion over something seemingly minor, often signals the stirrings of your shadow. It's the response that comes from your own unresolved grudges, insecurities, or fears that are lurking just beneath the surface. Carl Jung, born in 1875 and passing in 1961, was a pivotal figure in psychology, initially working closely with Freud before diverging profoundly. While Freud often looked to childhood experiences and infantile sexuality to explain our neuroses, Jung ventured into deeper existential and spiritual territories, exploring collective unconscious archetypes and, of course, the shadow. He saw the human psyche as a complex tapestry with conscious and unconscious elements constantly interacting. Understanding the shadow for Jung wasn't just theoretical. It was a profound personal journey, one he undertook himself with remarkable bravery. Jung wasn't merely crafting abstract theories in an ivory tower. He lived this stuff. What we now refer to as shadow work didn't originate as a clinical concept, but rather as his deeply personal journey through his own psychological wilderness. It was during a profound period of introspection and crisis, beginning around 1913, that Jung courageously plunged into the depths of his own unconscious mind. He documented this extraordinary and often terrifying exploration in his now famous Red Book, a meticulously illustrated and calligraphed manuscript filled with visions, dreams, and active imaginations. In it, he confronted what he described as figures and entities emerging directly from the deepest recesses of his psyche. This wasn't just contemplation. It was a vivid, visceral encounter with what he would later define as the shadow. You see, Jung wasn't interested in simply intellectualizing the psyche. He wanted to experience it. This intense period of self-experimentation, which he later called his confrontation with the unconscious, was instrumental in shaping his theories. He grappled with inner voices, powerful archetypal images, and challenging aspects of himself that he had previously suppressed or ignored. It was a chaotic, often disorienting process, but from it emerged his groundbreaking psychological concepts, including the shadow. There's a powerful quote from Jung that encapsulates this perfectly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This wasn't a whimsical statement for him. It was a deeply felt truth born from his own struggle. If we don't consciously engage with the hidden parts of ourselves, the shadow, they will inevitably manifest in our lives, often in ways that feel outside our control, like those persistent annoyances we keep encountering. We attribute them to bad luck, destiny, or simply other people being inherently difficult, when in reality, they might be echoes of our own unacknowledged inner landscape. This deeply personal experience also fueled a significant ideological break from his mentor, Sigmund Freud. While Freud largely looked outward, attributing many psychological issues to external factors like infantile sexuality and early life traumas, Jung instinctively looked inward. He posited that true psychological healing and growth came from confronting our inner monsters, our suppressed desires, and our rejected traits. It was about integrating these estranged parts of ourselves, rather than simply analyzing them away or blaming external circumstances. Freud sought to diagnose and fix. Jung sought to understand and integrate. And this internal journey is precisely why, centuries later, his theories remain incredibly relevant to our everyday lives, especially when we're battling those inescapable irritations. So, why does this concept of the shadow, this personal journey of Jung's, matter to us today, particularly when faced with those irksome individuals? Here's the crucial insight. Your shadow isn't inherently evil, dark, or monstrous. It's simply unacknowledged. It's composed of traits that, for various reasons, upbringing, societal conditioning, past traumas, we've deemed unacceptable and pushed out of our conscious awareness. And here's why that matters. What irritates you most profoundly in others often reflects something unresolved, unintegrated, or even secretly admired within yourself. Let me give you a few quick-fire examples to illustrate this. Do you absolutely hate it when people brag or overtly seek attention? You might find yourself internally seething at their perceived arrogance. But perhaps, when you look inward, you'll realize you were taught from a young age to be humble, to dim your own light, and to never celebrate your achievements too loudly. Your annoyance at the braggart could be a reflection of your own suppressed desire to be seen, to be acknowledged, or to unapologetically own your successes. Can't stand laziness or perceived lack of ambition in others? Do you pride yourself on being a hard worker, always pushing, always achieving? It's possible that a part of your shadow is tired of overachieving, silently yearning for rest, ease, or even a healthier relationship with effort there. Laziness highlights your own overwork. Are you enraged by flakiness? By people who refuse to commit or constantly change their minds? You might be someone who prides themselves on reliability and dependability, but deep down, could your shadow be wishing for a bit more freedom, a bit more flexibility, or even the courage to say no more often to things you don't truly want to do? Think of it like an emotional meter overlay. Perhaps you can visualize this on screen. Calm, triggered, boiling, snapping. When someone pushes your buttons, that meter starts to climb. The faster it climbs, and the more intensely you react, the more likely it is that a deeply hidden part of your shadow is being activated. It's not just about their annoying behavior. It's about how their behavior resonates with an unexamined part of you. The key takeaway here is this: annoyance is a symptom, it's a signal. A flashing red light on your internal dashboard, and self-awareness is the antidote. When you start to view these external irritations not as a problem residing out there, but as signposts pointing inward, you gain immense power. You move from being a reactive victim of circumstances to an active participant in your own psychological growth. This isn't just theoretical. It has profound implications for how we navigate our daily lives and relationships. This concept of the shadow and the need to acknowledge these unintegrated parts of ourselves isn't just an abstract theory from a century ago, relegated to dusty psychology textbooks. It has profound and very real modern relevance. Therapists today actively use principles of shadow work in diverse treatment modalities. It's a powerful tool in emotional regulation, helping individuals understand the root causes of their intense reactions rather than just managing symptoms. It's incredibly valuable in relationship therapy, where unacknowledged shadows in one or both partners can create recurring conflict and misunderstanding. Even in addiction recovery, understanding the suppressed needs or traumas that the addiction might be masking is crucial. Fundamentally, shadow work is at the heart of many contemporary mindfulness and self-awareness practices, encouraging a deeper, more honest look inward. Think about the modern digital landscape. Consider the social media troll subculture. Why do people often unleash vitriolic, anonymous rage online, menting things they would never dare say face to face, things they might not even consciously admit feeling about themselves? This is a classic example of projection, a defense mechanism closely tied to the shadow. We project our own unacknowledged flaws, fears, and frustrations onto others, often those we dehumanize or see as different, and then attack those projected qualities. The online world provides a convenient, somewhat anonymous outlet for these suppressed aggressive or critical shadow aspects to run rampant. And it's not just about negative traits. Many of Jung's ideas, though perhaps not explicitly labeled Jungian in every popular context, have permeated psychological thought and self-help movements. Concepts like inner child healing, which focuses on addressing the needs of our younger, wounded selves, often tap into the shadow parts that were formed during childhood trauma or suppression. Similarly, parts therapy models, like internal family systems IFS, that view the psyche as composed of various subpersonalities, including a child part, critic part, etc., are inherently rooted in the Jungian idea of acknowledging and integrating different aspects of the self, many of which reside in the shadow. So, while the term shadow work might sound intimidating, it's really a framework for increasing self-awareness, for understanding why certain people or situations trigger us so intensely, and ultimately for gaining a deeper sense of inner peace and control. It moves us beyond simply reacting to external stimuli and toward a more conscious, intentional way of being in the world. And to drive this point home, let's look at some very concrete examples of how this plays out in our everyday lives. Let's ground this theory in some real-world situations. The people who consistently poke our shadow are everywhere, often masquerading as simply annoying. Consider case #1, the micromanaging boss. You know the type. Paul is always hovering, questioning every decision, needing to approve every tiny detail. You find yourself getting progressively more frustrated, feeling infantilized and resentful. But why does Paul's controlling nature bother you so much? Perhaps when you delve deeper, you realize that growing up, your own environment was chaotic. Maybe your father was unpredictable, or your mother struggled with organization, leading you to an almost obsessive need for order and control in your own life. Because you're terrified of disorder, And because you've suppressed any desire for freedom from that need for control, Paul isn't just annoying. He's triggering a deep-seated fear of losing control, reminding you of a childhood vulnerability stored away in your shadow. It's not Paul's fault you feel this way, but he's certainly highlighting it. Next, case #2, the bragger on your Instagram feed. We've all seen them, that influencer who constantly posts their perfect life, their lavish vacations, their impossibly beautiful meals, their toned bodies. You might find yourself rolling your eyes, scoffing at their superficiality, maybe even feeling a pang of resentment. Who do they think they are? You might grumble. But if you lean into the discomfort, your shadow might be whispering something else. I envy that freedom. I wish I could be that unapologetically visible. I secretly crave that admiration, but I'm afraid to show off. Your disdain isn't just about their bragging. It's about your own suppressed desires for recognition or perhaps your fear of judgment if you were to truly express yourself. And this isn't just limited to individual interactions. It plays out in broader culture too. Think about certain pop culture characters who initially annoy us, but whom we grow to love. Tony Stark, for example, as Iron Man. He's flawed, incredibly egotistical, arrogant, and relies entirely on his intellect and money. Early on, he can be insufferable. Yet, as the story progresses, and he's forced to face his own guilt, his past mistakes, and genuinely acknowledge his vulnerabilities, to let the mask down and integrate his shadow, his irresponsibility, his self-centeredness, he transforms into a true hero. The very traits that might have initially irritated us become part of a complex, relatable character arc. He's a projection of that part of us that might want to be that uninhibited, but that we've suppressed. The key insight here is profound. Every annoying person, every frustrating situation is a flashlight. They're shining a light into parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden, unexamined, and out of sight. They aren't the problem themselves. They are the messengers, delivering an uncomfortable truth about our own inner landscape. Once we understand this, their power to disturb our peace diminishes. That NOW. I know what some of you might be thinking at this point. Wait a minute. Does this mean if I'm annoyed by someone, it's all my fault? Or does this mean I just have to tolerate toxic people and their behavior because it's a reflection of my inner self? These are common and valid misunderstandings when first encountering the shadow concept. So let's debunk a few myths right now. First, no, understanding the shadow doesn't mean you have to just tolerate genuinely toxic or abusive people. Jungian psychology is not about condoning harmful behavior from others. Instead, it's about giving you the tools to understand your own emotional landscape so you can respond with greater awareness and intentionality, rather than simply reacting from a place of unconscious trigger. It's about choosing how you engage or disengage with situations and people, rather than being swept away by intense emotions. Understanding why something bothers you empowers you to set boundaries more effectively, to leave unhealthy situations, or to approach conflict from a place of self-awareness. Second, does this mean everything is my fault? Again, no. It's not about blame. It's about responsibility. While not everything that happens to you is your fault, everything is your responsibility to examine inwardly. Your reactions, your emotional state, how you choose to process external events, that's where your power lies. Shifting from a mindset of external blame, they made me feel this way, to internal inquiry. Why did I react this way to what they did? Is a crucial step towards emotional freedom. It liberates you from being a victim of circumstance and puts you in the driver's seat of your own emotional life. And perhaps the most important misunderstanding to clear up. Is the shadow always dark and bad? Absolutely not. This is a crucial point. The shadow primarily consists of those traits we deem unacceptable or unlovable. However, society, our upbringing, and personal experiences can lead us to suppress perfectly positive and powerful traits that just didn't fit into our perceived ideal self. For example, assertiveness, healthy ambition, creativity, sensuality, or even a deep capacity for joy might have been pushed into your shadow if, as a child, you were told to be quiet, modest, realistic, or serious. The shadow isn't a villain. It's more like an untrained, often misunderstood dog. It barks loudly, sometimes aggressively, When strangers, those external triggers get too close to your emotional home because it's trying to protect something valuable, or because it simply hasn't learned any other way to express itself. Integrating the shadow isn't about eliminating it, but about understanding it, training it, and reclaiming its raw, vital energy for conscious, constructive use. Let's walk through a common scenario that often pushes our buttons and see how applying this shadow lens can change our experience. Imagine you're at a holiday dinner, a universally recognized setting for emotional landmines. Everything is going fine until Uncle Joe, after a second glass of wine, starts ranting about politics. He's loud, he's dismissive of anyone else's opinion, and his arguments to you seem utterly illogical or insensitive. You feel your blood pressure rising. You roll your eyes, clench your jaw, and the urge to scream, to correct him, or simply to flee the room becomes almost overwhelming. This is where the inner monologue, guided by shadow awareness, can transform the situation. Instead of just absorbing his rhetoric and getting increasingly agitated, you can ask yourself, why does this bother me so much? He's done this 100 times. Is it just the politics, or is there something else here? Here's where you walk through the logic. 1. Name the feeling. Beyond just annoyed. Maybe it's powerless, unheard, frustrated by rigid thinking, or even ashamed to be associated with his views. 2. What memory does it connect to? Does Uncle Joe's behavior remind you of someone else in your past who dismissed your opinions, perhaps a parent or a teacher? Does it tap into a time when you felt truly unheard or trapped by someone else's dominant personality? Your shadow might be holding on to old bruises related to feeling disrespected or silenced. 3. What belief does it trigger? Do you secretly believe that your voice doesn't matter, or that you can't change things? Does his certainty trigger your own insecurities about your beliefs? 4. How can I respond, not react? Once you recognize the internal button being pushed, you can detach from the immediate surge of emotion. You might realize that Uncle Joe isn't just about politics. He's activating a part of your shadow that desperately wants to be heard, to be right, or to instigate change, but feels powerless. The payoff here is profound. By observing your internal experience instead of simply absorbing and being consumed by the external trigger, you stay calm, you regain control. You can then choose a conscious response. Perhaps engaging calmly, perhaps changing the subject, or perhaps just excusing yourself to get more cranberry sauce. Knowing that his external rant is less about him and more about a trigger within you that needs your attention visually. Imagine an animated, emotional dashboard overlaying your inner thoughts. Uncle Joe speaks, and buttons light up. Ego triggered, flashes red, then you deliberately hit pause. Next, you mentally name the shadow, e.g., my need to be right, my fear of voicelessness. Finally, you choose awareness, opting for a response that aligns with your own peace, not an unconscious reaction driven by old wounds. This simple internal journey allows you to detach, observe, and find peace even in the midst of a family dinner turned war zone. The path to lasting calm starts by understanding your inner landscape, and there are practical tools you can use to start this journey today. So, how do you actually put this newfound understanding into practice? How do you embark on your own inner training to integrate your shadow and stay calm, even when faced with the most annoying people? Here are 3 practical tools you can start using today. Tool 1. Name the trigger. This is your first line of defense the moment you feel that familiar irritation, that boiling sensation, or that urge to snap. Pause, don't just react. Instead, ask yourself, what exactly is bothering me about this situation or this person's behavior right now? And when have I felt this same way before? This last part is crucial. Often, current triggers connect to old wounds or suppressed aspects of your past. By identifying the specific feeling and tracing it back in your memory, you begin to depersonalize the current situation. It's less about them and more about what they're activating in you. For instance, if you hate someone who constantly complains, maybe you'll realize it triggers an old memory of your parent always complaining, and you felt immense pressure to be positive and cheerful, suppressing your own right to express discomfort. To reverse empathy, or the trait reversal. This one can be challenging, but it's incredibly powerful when you identify a trait in someone else that just makes you absolutely seethe. Say, you can't stand that smug, self-satisfied person who acts like they know everything. Try this. Ask yourself, where in my life or deep down have I wanted permission to be that free? Where do I secretly yearn to be that confident or that unapologetically assertive or even that loud, selfish, or uninhibited? This isn't about becoming smug, it's about recognizing the suppressed desire or capacity within you. Perhaps you've held yourself back your whole life, always putting others first. That smugness might be a distorted reflection of a healthy assertiveness or self-belief that your shadow holds for you. Longing to be expressed, bringing awareness to this can free you from the intense negative reaction to us through the shadow ledger or annoyance journal. Make this a daily practice. At the end of each day, take 5 to 10 minutes to journal. Create 2 columns. In the first column, write down what bothered me today. List specific people, words, or situations. In the second column, write, what did that annoyance say about me? What part of my shadow might this relate to? Be honest and compassionate with yourself. For example, bothered me. My coworker took credit for my idea in the meeting, said about me. I have a hidden desire to be recognized, but I'm afraid to speak up and claim my own achievements. Maybe I suppress my ambition. Do this for just 7 days. Even a week of this simple practice can dramatically change your perspective. You'll be amazed at how much lighter, calmer, and more aware you become, turning everyday annoyances into profound opportunities for self-discovery and growth. So next time someone says something that grinds your gears, someone behaves in a way that makes your skin crawl, or a situation arises that triggers that familiar surge of annoyance, before you react, before you let yourself be swept away by that emotional wave, pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself this powerful question. Courtesy of Carl Jung. What if they're holding up a mirror? What if the person chewing loudly, or the coworker interrupting, or the cousin ranting about conspiracies, or even that kid on the skateboard isn't just an isolated source of irritation? What if they are, in fact, an unwitting messenger, showing you a part of yourself that yearns for your attention? A part that wants healing, a part that you might need to reclaim, or even a part that, once integrated, can bring you deeper self-acceptance and a profound sense of peace. Remember, the shadow isn't a dark secret to be ashamed of. It's a vital, powerful aspect of your complete self, waiting to be acknowledged and integrated. By engaging with it, you move from reaction to conscious response, from feeling controlled by external stimuli to becoming the master of your own inner world. This shift and perspective is not about condoning bad behavior from others. It's about liberating yourself from its emotional grip. It transforms every annoyance from a moment of frustration into an opportunity for profound self-discovery and growth. Imagine how much calmer, how much more centered, and how much more resilient you could become if every trigger became a stepping stone to greater self-awareness. So I want to ask you directly, who's the most annoying person in your life right now? And what might they quietly be teaching you about yourself? What aspect of your shadow are they illuminating? I invite you to comment below. Share just one trait you see in others that consistently triggers you. Let's start shedding light on these hidden parts of ourselves and unpack the shadow together. Because when we bring what's unconscious to light, we unlock a powerful path to clarity, compassion, and true inner calm. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. And check out these other videos on the screen, like What is Cognitive Dissonance? Freud versus Jung, Who was Right? And How to Master Emotional Reactivity, for more insights into your amazing mind. Thank you for watching, and stay calm out there.